Hey YouTube, it's Snowflarky's Emos, still playing Master Duel, and I'm here today to show off my Thunderclap Skywolf deck that I've been playing. This is a deck that I have quite a lot of fun playing on the ladder. It's just very simple play style, simple options, and it's just a deck that, with the help of Thunderclap Skywolf and other cards, you are just constantly board wiping your opponent's board so much that you create this little war of attrition against your opponent that, I have a lot of fun to play. And given that I've already kind of built the Card of Demise stun core, the rest of this deck was pretty easy to make, and so it seemed like an obvious go-to. So it's pretty fun. If anyone doesn't know what Thunderclap Skywolf does, it's essentially just a monster that, if you special summon it from the graveyard, you destroy all face-up monsters your opponent control, and you can't conduct the battle phase the turn you activate this effect. So that just means that this card, summoning this card, is essentially almost another torrential tribute, but just for your opponent, which is pretty good. So the whole point of this deck is we get Skywolf into the grave as fast as possible and bring him out from the grave during our opponent's turn as many times as we see fit. And with that, let's get into the card by card. Starting off with our monsters, I am playing 3 copies of Thunder Seahorse. Thunder Seahorse is just a card that we can discard out of our hand to add 2 level 4 light thunder type monsters of the same name with 1600 or less attack from the deck to your hand. Now we can't special summon the turn we activate this effect, but that's okay. We're usually using this effect for setup, and our target that we are usually grabbing off of Thunder Seahorse is Batteryman Solar. Batteryman Solar is a 1500 attack 4-star Batteryman monster that just says when this card is normal or special summon, you can send a Thunder monster from your deck to the graveyard. Batteryman Solar is the card we want to get real quick on our first turn because that means we can dump our last monster, Thunderclap Skywolf, into the graveyard. Thunderclap Skywolf, the namesake of the deck, the big payoff here. If this card is special summoned from the graveyard, you can destroy all face-up monsters your opponent controls. You cannot conduct your battle phase the turn you activate this effect. So essentially, if you time this special summon from the grave right on your opponent's turn, you can interrupt them in the middle of the play when they got materials before they go into an extra deck monster, or something like that. And, that can be pretty disruptive to an opponent and do quite a lot of damage. So those are our 3 monsters that we're playing in this deck. Getting into our spell cards, I'm playing 2 copies of Card of Demise. Now this card I would probably bump up to 3 and switch out one of these Pot of Extravagance copies, but Card of Demise just says that we draw until we have 3 cards in our hand. Also, for the rest of this turn, our opponent takes no damage, and of course during the end phase we send our entire hand to the grave, and additionally we can't special summon on the turn we play this card. That's fine, we don't do much special summoning on our turn in this deck, so no big deal, and drawing until we have 3 cards is a pretty big deal, definitely something we want to have. And what's nice is even this discard your entire hand to the graveyard can be a benefit because it can get a Skywolf that's stuck in our hand into the grave, which we need to do in order to summon it off with these traps. Next up, I am playing 3 copies of Pot of Duality. Excavate the top 3 cards of your deck in exchange for your special summon and add one of them to your hand. And that's fine. We want to get a key combo piece. Do we need Batteryman Solar? Do we need a Card of Demise? Do we need one of these trap cards to revive it? Whatever we're looking for, Pot of Duality gives us a better chance of finding it. And then, of course, next up is Pot of Extravagance. Start of your main phase 1, banish 3 or 6 random cards from your extra deck face down, and draw 1 card for every 3 cards banished. So we banish 6 random extra deck cards, draw 2. Awesome. We want those to be Skywolves, Solars, trap cards, whatever we're looking for. Pot of Extravagance will get it to us. So with those spells, we get through our deck, get to what we need to set up, and disrupt a lot on our opponent's turn. Next, we're going to go into our trap cards. I am playing 3 copies of Torrential Tribute. Torrential Tribute is basically just the trap card version of Thunderclap Skywolf. So, when a monster is summoned, destroy all monsters on the field. If we're constantly blowing up our opponent's board, this is another card that just does that, and cards like this will threaten our opponent quite a bit. They'll probably want to blind hit back row, which we can punish them for it with Waking the Dragon. So it's a pretty powerful card. Also, what's nice about this is that if you have Torrential Tribute and you only have one of your two Skywolves in the grave, which means you only have access to one of them, you can summon Skywolf to blow up the field, and then if they are able to go into more monsters, then you can Torrential Tribute, blow up their field again. That'll get your Skywolf back in the grave for another trap card to revive it, because the Thunderclap Skywolf is not a once per turn effect, which is pretty nice. Next up, 3 copies of Storm Mirror Force, just a card I have in my collection for a lot of other decks. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, return all your opponent's attack position monsters to the hand. So if the disruption from Torrential and Skywolf isn't enough, Storming Mirror Force, non-targeting, non-destruction removal, sends them back to the hand. In my IRL version of this, I like to play copies of Drowning Mirror Force, but in this one, it just simply is not worth the super rare dust at this time. If I have excess to spend, then I will do so. But until then, we're just playing 3 copies of Storming. Next up, I'm playing 2 copies of Lost Wind. Pretty nice trap card in these kind of decks. Target a face-up special summon monster on the field, negate its effect, and also its attack is halved. So serves as both effect negation and a way to half attack so that you can attack over it. And of course, if a monster is special summoned from your opponent's extra deck while this card is in the graveyard, you can set this card but banish it while it leaves the field. So that recursion is a little nice too. We like to have that. Next up, I'm playing 2 copies of Heavy Storm Duster. Target up to 2 spell or trap cards on the field and destroy them. You can't conduct your battle phase this turn. That's fine. We're going to play this on our opponent's turn, and this is just to handle other kind of annoying back row decks. In best of ones, back row decks are a little more prevalent, so main decking, some spell and trap removal has seemed pretty nice in my opinion, so no problems with playing 2 copies of this. Next up, the first of our revival traps. Back to the front, target a monster in your grave, special summon it into defense mode. I'd probably max out at 3 copies if I had it, but I haven't crafted the other ones yet just because super rare dust is very precious and there are plenty of budget substitutes that I'm running at the time. That worked out pretty well. So of course, back to the front, use it to get out Skywolf. You can also use these if you have Skywolf set up and it's the end of the turn. You can also use these to pump out a Batteryman Solar that may be in your grave to get more your second Skywolf into the grave, have access to multiple. Also, you don't want to hard draw Skywolf, so just something that you can consider. Next up, 2 copies of Waking the Dragon. We play lots of back row in this deck. People are going to want to play Lightning Storm. People are going to want to play Heavy Storm Duster. They're going to want to blind hit your back row, especially once they see you're running Mirror Force and Torrential. So we want to try to punish them by having them hit Waking the Dragon. If this set card leaves the field and is now in the graveyard or banished because of our opponent, we can special summon a monster from our deck or extra deck. And our extra deck has some good targets that we can summon and in the right matchups just outright win the game. Next up, 3 copies of Solemn Judgment. Once we have things in our favor, this deck can be a little fragile, so we want to make sure that just like key cards that are going to destroy us at the wrong time get negated. If we don't have Waking the Dragon and we're going to get Lightning Storm to Harpy's Feather Duster, we want to be able to play Solemn Judgment and just say no to that. So very important card for this kind of deck. Next up is just more revival traps here. We're playing Call of the Haunted. We special summon a monster from our grave in attack position. Next up, Oasis of the Dragon Souls. Target a monster in our graveyard, special summon in defense position. It becomes a worm type, which doesn't matter too much. And like Call of the Haunted, Oasis of the Dragon Souls, when it says has a way of removing itself from the field. Now in Call of the Haunted, your monster has to be destroyed, but in Oasis, it's just that when that monster leaves the field, destroy this card. So pretty good. And then next up, World Legacy Secret. When this card is activated, target a level 5 or higher monster in your graveyard and special summon it. When this card leaves the field, destroy that monster. So of course, Thunderclap Skywolf is a level 7, so this card can bring it out for free and is just a normal card. So, very cheap on the dust. And so glad to be playing that at 3 copies. So all those traps can get our Thunderclap Skywolf on the field, and as long as we can keep getting Thunderclap Skywolf on the field, we can keep disrupting our opponent's board. Next here, let's go over some of the extra deck cards, mostly extravagance fodder, but we do got some uses for them. First one is the Last Warrior from Another Planet. This is one of our targets to summon off of Waking the Dragon. Basically, when this card's on the field, neither player can summon monsters. So if your opponent hits Waking the Dragon and they have an open board, summoning Last Warrior means they often can't combo off unless they have a follow-up removal for this card. And that can be pretty obnoxious. That can outright win the game. Next up, we are playing a copy of Stardust Dragon. This is a last resort backup target that you can play off of Waking the Dragon, just because you know, it has the ability to negate the activation of a card that would destroy cards on the field. So figured it might as well have a slot since I don't have the maxed out Waking the Dragon extra deck yet. Next is White Aura Behemoth. This one's pretty nice because it's got 3,300 attack, and when it's summoned, will summon you a 3,300 attack token, which could be pretty hard to deal with if your opponent doesn't have removal right away, and you know, battling over 3,300 attack is pretty hard to do. Next, one of our ideal Waking the Dragon targets, Blackwing Full Armor Master, unaffected by other card effects and 3,000 attack, so that right there makes it pretty hard to deal with. You got a kaiju, you got to battle over it, something like that. And also, Full Armor Master got pretty good effects. When an opponent's monster activates its effect, place a wedge counter on that, and then after that effect resolves once per turn, you can target a monster your opponent controls with a wedge counter and take control of it. And then once per turn during your end phase, you can destroy all monsters on the field that have wedge counters. So pretty obnoxious abilities, you know, that can do a lot of damage, and this can just be a hard to deal with monster for certain decks. Next, a copy of Catchy Kochi Dragon. This is just an XZ we can make with 2 level 4s, which we won't make very often, but it does warrant a use, so it could come in handy. So once per turn, when this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, since it's a graveyard, detach a material, and it can make a second attack in a row. Everyone gets this card, so I figured I might as well play it. Next, I am playing 3 copies of Raid Raptor Ultimate Falcon. Definitely our go-to Waking the Dragon target if we're not summoning Last Warrior. It is just a 3,500 attack monster that is unaffected by card effects. Very hard to deal with. Next up, I'm playing a copy of Link Spider. Link Spider is a Link monster that can be made with a normal monster, which is important because Batteryman's Solar, when another Thunder monster is normally special summoned to the field, it special summons a Batteryman token, and that is mandatory. And those Batteryman tokens can clog up your field, so we want to be able to have ways to get rid of those, and Link Spider is one of those ways. Next, we have Lanpharynchus, just takes 2 monsters, you know, if we have those tokens. If we want to get Thunderclap Skywolf off the field so that it's back in the graveyard to disrupt on our opponent's next turn, it's an option. And that's kind of what the rest of these are, just Link 2s that can be made with any monster, you know. Backup Supervisor here can be made with 2 monsters, you know, that's fine. 1,200 attack, get tokens, and Skywolf off the field. Next up, Defender of the Labyrinth, 2 normal monsters. That the tokens off Batteryman Solar are normal monsters, so if you have 2 of those tokens, you can get them off the field for this guy, which is pretty nice. Next, Proglio, just 2 monsters except tokens, so we can't use the tokens for this one, but we can use it to get Thunderclap Skywolf back into the grave if we have an extra target. And of course, Traffic Ghost, just 3 monsters. Just cards that could possibly be used to get tokens or Skywolf off the field. And that's pretty important to keep in mind for this deck. Next here, we got a replay to see the deck in action. So let's check that out. Going up against a Monarch deck, which I found to be fairly popular on the ladder just because they give you the Monarch structure, and of course the Monarchs don't require an extra deck, so it's a pretty good budget option for people to play, especially because in Master Duel format, you know, we have access to more pantheism and things like that. So I start off my turn. I got the Batteryman Solar in my opening hand, so I'm playing Batteryman Solar to ditch Skywolf in the grave, set my traps, and play Card of Demise. This allows me to get some more traps. After that, I'm going to discard my Thunder Seahorse here to add 2 of those to the hand, just because I don't want to draw into those next turn. And now I've got 5 back row set, a Batteryman Solar, and of course 2 of these back row are Revival for Thunderclap Skywolf, which is pretty nice, Storming Mirror Force, which is nice, Waking the Dragon, which is nice in case we get board wiped. So pretty good end board setup. Get rid of those excess Seahorses from my Card of Demise. Next, they're tributing off into Aether. I'm going to Solemn Judgment that just to kind of halt the play in the tracks. And at the end phase, I am going to summon a Thunder Seahorse just so on the open board I can get more damage in. And what's important about this too is it keeps my Thunderclap Skywolf in the grave, which I can use for a few next turn when my opponent starts summoning monsters. I can interrupt it with Thunderclap Skywolf. So do keep that in mind when you play this deck. Something you definitely got to do. I draw a Torrential Tribute, which is pretty nice. You know, can get in for 15, can get in for 16, and set my Torrential, and we're good to go. Alright, turn change here. Opponent plays Monarch Stormforth, gets rid of my Thunder Seahorse to summon Vanities. Vanities, of course, pretty powerful because I can't summon my Thunderclap Skywolf under Vanities, but that's okay. He attacks into it, and I can Stormy Mirror Force back to the hand. Alright. Now pass to my turn again. Get a Pot of Duality to get into a trap card that I'm looking for. So I grab the Oasis of the Dragon Souls, get another 1500 damage in for poke. This will put them in range that if they have an open board, Thunderclap Skywolf and Batteryman Solar will be able to end the game. Set our trap, give the turn back to them. Next, they play Tenacity of the Monarchs. You know, gonna get some cards here. Grab a Stormforth. Alright, that'll remove my Batteryman Solar. Stormforth. And of course they can use that. They can use their field spell to make Aether a 1 tribute. Aether will summon Caius the Mega Monarch. I am then at this point going to play World Legacy Secret. Get out my Thunderclap Skywolf. Blow up these monsters. Very nicely done. Now Pantheism's going to go off. Again, one of the reasons people like to play Monarchs on Master Duel. They draw into 1-for-1 here, which can get out their Edia. Edia, of course, will get out Eidos. Eidos will get its effect off, but I am going to Torrential at this point so that my opponent doesn't have any materials to tribute summon. Also gets Thunderclap Skywolf back in the grave, which means I got one more disruption with Oasis. They are then going to get Edia back on board, just to have a body on board. They're going to keep going through cards as much as they can, try to get what they can, but they end their turn with just Edia. So at the end phase, I am going to Oasis into Skywolf. That'll blow up Edia and leave their board open for me to attack with 2500. Top deck Extravagance, the kind of top deck we want to see. I'm able to draw 2 cards, one of which is Batteryman Solar. Use that to dump another Solar, and if this trap card can't disrupt me, then this ends the game, which it does. And that's Thunderclap Skywolf in action. You just disrupt, blow up opponents' boards constantly, and poke them while they're open. So that's my Thunderclap Skywolf Master Duel deck profile. I hope you enjoyed. This was just a fun, easy to put together deck with the fact that I had already invested a lot in these trap cards and these Card of Demise style decks. It just basically cost me, you know, 5 more supers, 3 ultras, especially because cards like Call of the Haunted and whatnot came with one of the starter decks, which is pretty cool to note. So, you know, it's definitely an option if you're a trap card player like I am, or having lots of fun playing Card of Demise at 3, stuff like that. Pretty good option. I enjoyed it very much. So let me know what you think. Do you enjoy Thunderclap Skywolf? Have you seen this deck somewhere else on Master Duel? Let me know what you think if you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you all in the next one.